The box arrived on a morning too ordinary for something so heavy with consequence. It was left on my porch without a note, wrapped in a weathered canvas that smelled faintly of tobacco and seawater. At first, I thought it was a mistake, some delivery for a neighbor, but the moment I touched it, a chill ran down my spine. My name was carved into the lid. Not written, not labeled, but carved into the wood in a shaky hand I had not seen since childhood. My father's hand. The man I buried 10 years ago. I froze, gripping the handle as memories rushed like a flood. His distant eyes, his habit of vanishing for days without explanation, the way my mother would cover for him, lying with a smile so brittle it could shatter. I hadn't spoken his name aloud in years. And yet, here he was, reaching out to me from beyond the grave. The box wasn't locked, only bound with fraying rope. I carried it inside, every step heavy as though I were dragging a coffin. When I finally set it on the kitchen table and loosened the rope, the lid creaked open and released a smell of leather and old dust. Inside were journals, bound in cracked brown leather, the edges singed as if they had survived a fire. On top lay a single page, folded neatly. My breath caught when I saw the handwriting. It was his again. To my daughter, Elena. If you are reading this, it means they have found me at last. Do not trust anyone. Do not discard these journals. Inside is everything. My enemies are not finished, and neither is the story of who I was. Who you are. My hands trembled so violently that I nearly tore the note. Enemies? A story unfinished? My father was a dock worker, a quiet man who drank more than he should, who spoke little, who died of what I was told was a heart attack. But as I opened the first journal, the illusion shattered. The opening line read, December 14th, 1979. I am no longer Anton Sokolov. That man must remain dead. From this day, I am another. My heart pounded so hard I felt it in my throat. Every page was filled with accounts of people I had never heard of, places that seemed both real and foreign, coded names, and hidden rendezvous. Words like safe house, interrogation, traitor, spilled across the pages in black ink, and with each line I realized I had never truly known my father at all. He wasn't a dock worker. He was something else. I slammed the journal shut as if it might burn me. For a long moment, I sat there, staring at the box, debating whether to call someone, my mother, the police, anyone. But then I remembered the line in his note, do not trust anyone. That single sentence lodged itself deep in my mind, and no matter how I tried to shake it off, it clung like a curse. That night, sleep wouldn't come. I kept the journals on my nightstand as though guarding them. Every creak of the house made me sit up, listening. And then, just past midnight, I saw it, a shadow shifting across my front yard. Not the kind cast by a tree, but deliberate, human. My chest tightened as I moved closer to the window, careful not to make a sound. There, under the dim glow of the street lamp, stood a man in a dark coat, his face turned toward my house. He didn't move. He didn't knock. He only waited. I pressed myself against the wall, holding my breath, too terrified to call out, too paralyzed to move. After what felt like hours but could have been minutes, he walked away, disappearing into the night. But when I finally dared to peek outside again, something gleamed faintly in the dirt of the driveway. I went out, my steps slow, my ears straining for any sound. There, half buried in the gravel, was a brass key tied with a piece of thread. Attached was a scrap of paper, smudged with dirt and water. On it, 3 words scrawled in the same handwriting as the journals, not safe here. My pulse roared in my ears. Whoever my father had been, whatever world he belonged to, it had just reached my doorstep. I did not sleep for the rest of the night. Every creak in the house was a threat, every shadow a hand reaching for me. When the first light of dawn bled through the curtains, I had already packed a bag, stuffed the journals into it, and paced the kitchen floor until my nerves hummed raw. The key still lay on the counter, its brass worn smooth by time. What lock did it belong to? Who had left it? Was it my father's ally, or his enemy? The warning note gave no answer, only more dread. I thought of calling my mother, of demanding to know the truth, but when I picked up the phone my hand froze. The last time I had spoken to her about my father, she'd shut me down with the finality of a slammed door. Your father was a simple man, she had said then, her voice sharp. He worked, he drank, and he died. Stop digging. But I could no longer stop. The digging had already begun. By midday, I drove to her house, the bag of journals in the trunk, the key tucked into my pocket. The drive stretched like a tunnel, the world outside distant and unreal. When I arrived, she looked surprised, even wary. Her house smelled of lavender polish and old wood, unchanged since my childhood. But I wasn't here for comfort. I laid the note and the key on the table between us. "Mom," I said, my voice unsteady. "What is this? What was Dad hiding?" For a moment, her expression cracked. A shadow of fear flashed across her face, so quick I might have doubted it if I hadn't seen her hands trembling as she reached for the key. She didn't touch it. She only stared. "Where did you get this?" she whispered. I told her everything. The box, the journals, the man outside, the note. When I finished, her face was pale as if the blood had drained out. She shook her head slowly. "You should have burned them," she said. "You should have never opened them." Anger surged through me. "What are you talking about? He was my father. He left these for me. He left you danger," she snapped, her voice rising for the first time. "Anton was not the man you thought he was. She stopped, pressing her lips tight, as though she had almost stepped into forbidden territory. "Tell me," I demanded, slamming my hand on the table. The sound echoed through the small kitchen. "No more lies." But before she could answer, the sharp crunch of tires on gravel split the air. We both froze. I turned toward the window and saw a dark sedan pulling into the driveway, its windows tinted. Two men stepped out, both in plain clothes, but with the stiff bearing of people used to authority. My mother's face turned ashen. "Go," she hissed, grabbing my arm. "Through the back door? Take the journals and go. Don't let them see you." Panic flared. "Who are they?" I asked, but she was already shoving me toward the back. "Not now? Run." My heart thundered as I clutched the bag and bolted through the narrow hallway to the back door. Behind me, I heard the knock on the front door, loud, insistent. I slipped outside, crouched low behind the hedge, and watched through the branches as my mother opened the door. One of the men flashed something, an ID, maybe. They stepped inside without waiting for permission. I couldn't hear the words, but I saw their posture, their tension, and the way one of them scanned the room as if hunting for me. My throat tightened. I backed away, keeping low, until I reached my car. Every instinct screamed to drive, but instead, I crouched in the seat, watching. After a few minutes, the men emerged again. One of them looked around the yard, his gaze sweeping dangerously close to where I crouched. I held my breath, not daring to move. Finally, they returned to their car and drove off, leaving only a storm of questions behind. When I went back inside, my mother sat slumped at the table, her hands covering her face. "They know," she said, her voice breaking. "They've been waiting for him to resurface. And now you've put yourself in the middle." "Who are they?" I asked again. "Government? Criminals? What was Dad involved in?" She looked at me with eyes that carried years of secrets, eyes that finally cracked. "Your father was not Anton Sokolov. That was only one of his names. He worked for them once, until he betrayed them. He disappeared into this life, into us, thinking he was free. But no one ever leaves them, and now they know you exist." The words struck like blows. My father had lived a double life, and his enemies were still alive, still watching. The journals weren't relics of his past. They were evidence, a map, maybe even a weapon. And I was holding them. That night, I returned home, my mother's warnings ringing in my ears. I should have been afraid, but something deeper had taken hold, an insatiable need to know the truth. Who was my father? What had he done? And why had he chosen to leave me these journals instead of burning them? But as I spread the journals across my table, another realization crept in. If those men knew where to find my mother, they would find me too. Every word I read was a countdown, every hour a narrowing window. At midnight, I opened the second journal. Inside was a sketch of a warehouse by the docks, the word sanctuary scrawled above it. And beneath, a single line that made my blood run cold. "If I am gone, she will be next." I didn't know who she was. My mother? Me? Or someone else entirely? All I knew was that my father's enemies were closer than ever, and the key in my pocket suddenly burned with new weight. It was only the beginning, and already I was drowning. I didn't sleep again. The word sanctuary burned behind my eyes like a brand, the sketch of the warehouse etched into my thoughts no matter how I tried to push it aside. My father's journal sprawled across the table, each page like a puzzle piece that refused to fit. Outside, The city was quiet, but inside me a storm was rising. By morning, I had already made my decision. If the journals led somewhere, I had to follow. I couldn't sit still while shadows closed in around me. The docks weren't far, but the moment I arrived I knew I wasn't alone. The place looked abandoned, the warehouse windows cracked and boarded, its metal siding streaked with rust. But a black SUV lingered at the far corner, its tinted windows reflecting the weak daylight. I parked several streets away and walked the rest on foot, my bag heavy on my shoulder, the key cold against my chest. Each step closer made my pulse race, as if the walls themselves were watching me. Inside the warehouse, dust swirled in the pale light that filtered through broken panes. Rows of crates and shelves stood like forgotten sentinels. And then I saw it. An old locker against the back wall, padlocked, paint flaking. My hand flew to the key in my pocket. Was this it? My father's final hiding place. I approached, every nerve taut. But before I could reach the locker, a voice sliced through the silence. You shouldn't be here. I spun, my heart hammering, and saw a figure step from the shadows. A woman, mid-30s, dark hair tied back, her eyes sharp and assessing. She wasn't one of the men from before. She carried herself differently, more fluid, like someone who'd spent years in places like this. Her gaze flicked to the bag on my shoulder. You have them, she said, low but certain. The journals. My fingers tightened on the strap. Who are you? She raised her hands slowly, not threatening, but her eyes stayed locked on mine. My name is Irina. I knew your father. Or rather, I knew the man he used to be. The air thickened. I should have run. I should have left her standing there. But something in her tone, the mixture of grief and urgency, kept me rooted. Why are you here? I asked. Because they will come for you, she said. The same way they came for him. Unless you understand what you're holding, you won't survive long enough to use it. My chest tightened. Then tell me, what is it? Why did he leave it for me? She hesitated, her jaw tightening, and then nodded toward the locker. First, open it. If the key you carry fits, then it's yours by right. And then we talk. My hand shook as I pulled the key from my pocket and slid it into the padlock. It turned with a smooth click, too smooth for something untouched in years, as though it had been waiting. Inside, wrapped in oilcloth, was a stack of documents, photographs, and a small pistol with the serial number filed off. I pulled them out, laying them on a crate. Irina stepped closer, her eyes scanning the contents with a kind of haunted reverence. Proof, she murmured. Enough to burn them down if placed in the right hands. He must have trusted you more than he trusted himself. I flipped through the photographs, grainy images of men in uniforms, meetings in dimly lit rooms, money changing hands. And there, again and again, was my father's face. Sometimes stern, sometimes weary, but always present. Not Anton Sokolov, my father, but a man I didn't know, working in shadows, betraying and being betrayed. My stomach turned. He was a spy. I whispered, the word tasting bitter. More than that, Irina said softly. He was a defector. He turned against them when he realized what they were building. A network that reached far deeper than borders, deeper than governments. He tried to dismantle it, and he nearly succeeded until they found him. My head spun, the warehouse tilting around me. Then why leave this for me? I don't know anything about this world. I don't want to. Want has nothing to do with it, Irina said. Her eyes locked on mine, unyielding. Blood has a way of finding you. They know who you are now. That makes you both a target and a weapon. The only choice you have is how you'll use it. I wanted to scream, to deny it, to throw the journals into the river and walk away. But I saw the SUV outside in my mind, the men at my mother's house, the fear in her eyes. There was no walking away. Not anymore. So what do? I asked, my voice breaking despite myself. For the first time, Irina's expression softened. She reached into her jacket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. This is a contact. Safe, for now. If you decide to fight, he can help. But it will cost you everything. My fingers brushed the paper, but I didn't take it. Not yet. Irina watched me for a long moment, then said, You remind me of him. The stubbornness. The fire. Just make sure it doesn't burn you alive. With that, she turned and walked back into the shadows, disappearing as suddenly as she had appeared. I stood alone in the warehouse, surrounded by secrets I couldn't unlearn. My father's life was no longer his. It was mine now, whether I wanted it or not. I looked down at the pistol in the locker, My reflection fractured in its dark metal. My hands trembled as I picked it up. I had never held a weapon before, but something told me I would need it sooner than I imagined. And then I heard it, the faint crunch of footsteps outside the warehouse. Not Irina. Not friendly. My pulse spiked, the gun cold in my grip. They had found me. The footsteps outside grew louder, deliberate, echoing against the corrugated metal walls like a drumbeat of inevitability. I crouched low behind a stack of crates, every nerve screaming. The pistol felt foreign in my hand, too heavy and too light at once. I had never fired a weapon before. My father's journals, the photos, the documents, everything lay scattered on the crate behind me, exposed and damning. If they walked in and saw it, it would all be over. The warehouse door screeched as it slid open. Pale daylight cut across the dusty floor, revealing the shadow of a man, then another. They moved cautiously, guns drawn, sweeping the space like predators. Their voices were low, clipped, in a language I couldn't quite catch, though I recognized fragments from my father's mutterings when he thought no one was listening. Russian. My chest tightened. These were his hunters, and now they were mine. I pressed the gun close to my chest, fighting the tremor in my hands. Wait. Breathe. Move only if you have to. My father's voice, imagined, cut through my panic. I forced myself to stillness. One of the men kicked a loose can across the floor, the clatter ricocheting through the cavernous space. Check the back, one barked. The second man's boots began crunching toward the very row where I hid. My pulse hammered in my throat. 10 steps. 7. 3. His shadow stretched across the crates, his rifle barrel slicing the air. I gripped the pistol so tightly my knuckles whitened. Then, behind me, the old locker door creaked where I had left it half open. His head turned. His steps quickened. There was no choice. I rose, aimed, and fired. The sound split the air like thunder. The recoil jolted up my arm, numbing my hand. The man staggered back, clutching his shoulder, his weapon clattering to the ground. His companion shouted, sprinting toward him, weapon raised. I ran. The journals and photos stayed behind. There was no time to gather them. My legs propelled me through the maze of crates as bullets ripped through the air, splintering wood, ringing against steel. The warehouse door yawned ahead, sunlight blinding beyond it. I dove through, rolled across the gravel, and scrambled to my feet. Shouts followed me. Tires screeched. The black SUV roared to life, blocking the street. My chest heaved. Trapped. Then, from the corner of my eye, another engine flared. A rusted van shot forward, slamming into the SUV with bone-jarring force. Metal crunched, glass exploded. The SUV swerved, its front wheel lifting off the ground. Get in, a voice screamed. The van's passenger door swung open, and I didn't hesitate. I dove inside, landing hard on the floor. The door slammed shut, the van accelerating with a growl of its dying engine. My ears rang, my vision swam, but when I looked up I saw her. Irina, hands gripping the wheel, jaw set with grim determination. You weren't careful, she snapped, swerving sharply as gunfire rattled against the van's metal sides. You left everything behind. They were going to kill me. I shouted, clutching the pistol, my chest heaving. And now they have the journals. Better them than your corpse, she hissed, cutting the wheel to take a side street. The van lurched, nearly tipping, before leveling out. My stomach churned with the motion, but worse than that was the crushing realization. The documents, the photographs, my father's last legacy, they were gone. Why did you save me? I asked bitterly. You should have let me die with them. Her eyes flicked toward me, hard as steel. Because your father didn't die for you to give up now. Because I promised him if it came to this, I'd keep you alive long enough to choose. My head snapped up. You promised him? When? Her lips thinned. The night he disappeared. He knew they were closing in. He asked me to watch from a distance. I failed him once. I won't fail twice. The words cut deep, both a wound and a lifeline. I wanted to scream at her, to demand why she hadn't told me sooner, why she had let me stumble blindly into this nightmare. But another thought overtook it. If she had been watching all along, how many times had she seen me on the edge of danger without stepping in? My trust fractured, but necessity bound me to her. The van screeched to a halt in a deserted alley. Irina killed the engine, breathing hard. For a long moment, only silence stretched between us, broken by the ticking of the cooling engine. Finally, She turned to me. They'll hunt us harder now. You wounded one of them. They won't forgive that. And the journals, they'll tear them apart until they wring out every secret. The only way forward is to strike before they consolidate. Strike? I repeated, disbelief lacing my tone. You want me to fight them? I barely know how to hold this gun. She leaned closer, eyes burning into mine. You don't have to be a soldier. You just have to be willing to risk everything. That's what he did. My throat tightened. The image of my father's weary face in those photographs haunted me. He had risked everything, and it had cost him his life. And now, here I was, caught in the same snare. I can't do this, I whispered, the weight of despair pressing down. I'm not him. Irina's gaze softened, just barely. No, you're not. But you're all that's left. The air grew thick with unspoken truths. I wanted to believe her, but fear gnawed at me. My father's enemies were faceless, powerful, everywhere. And I was just one person, already drowning. Still, somewhere deep, a flicker of defiance stirred. I wasn't ready to surrender. Not yet. But even as that thought sparked, the sound of engines roared again. Irina's head snapped up, eyes narrowing. They've tracked us. My blood ran cold. How? She cursed under her breath. There's a tracker on the van. I didn't see it. We have seconds. She shoved a small flash drive into my palm. This is what I salvaged. Data he hid before the end. Don't let it fall into their hands. What about you? I asked, panic rising. Her eyes met mine, fierce and final. I'll buy you time. Run. Before I could argue, she flung open the driver's door, gun drawn. Shouts filled the alley as vehicles skidded to a stop at both ends. Irina fired first, sharp and relentless, her figure illuminated by muzzle flashes. Go, she screamed. I clutched the flash drive and bolted through a side door, the roar of gunfire chasing me into darkness. My lungs burned, my heart pounded, but worse than the fear was the crushing realization I was alone again. The alley's darkness swallowed me as I ran, the flash drive clenched in my fist like a burning coal. Behind me the gunfire thundered, echoing against brick, a storm of violence tearing apart the only ally I had left. Irina's voice still rang in my ears. Run. Don't let them have it. I burst through a broken doorway into an abandoned textile mill, the air thick with dust and the smell of rusted metal. My legs trembled, lungs clawing for breath, but I didn't stop. I pressed deeper inside, weaving between machines that loomed like hulking skeletons, every shadow alive with threat. My mind screamed questions. What was on this drive? Why had my father hidden it? Could it truly be worth so many lives? But answers would not save me now. Survival was the only thought allowed. Then came the voices. Low, harsh, too close. They had followed me inside. The scrape of boots, the click of weapons being readied. They were tightening the net. I crouched low behind a collapsed loom, forcing myself to steady my breathing. My fingers trembled as I pulled the pistol from my pocket. It felt lighter now, almost familiar, though dread still coiled in my gut. I didn't want to kill again, but I didn't want to die either. A beam of light sliced across the darkness, a flashlight mounted on a rifle. She's here, a voice called. My heart stopped. The men fanned out, careful, disciplined. This wasn't a blind chase. They knew how to corner prey. Then a thought hit me, sharp and undeniable. Running wouldn't save me anymore. If I kept fleeing, they would hunt me forever. If I wanted this to end, I had to stand. My father had died carrying secrets that these men would bury if they could. Irina had sacrificed herself to give me this chance. If I faltered now, all of it, his life, her death, would mean nothing. Slowly, I rose from behind the loom, pistol raised. Stop! My voice cracked, but carried through the cavernous hall. The beams of light swiveled, blinding me. Guns trained on me instantly. I forced the words out, louder this time. Shoot me, and the drive is gone. Burned, destroyed, everything he left, gone forever. Silence fell, heavy and taut. Then one of them stepped forward, tall, broad-shouldered, his face shadowed. His voice was calm, almost patient. You don't know what you're carrying, do you? I said nothing. His smile was faint, cruel. It isn't just names. It isn't just money. It's something much bigger. Your father stumbled into something that governments would kill to bury. Do you want to die for his mistake? His words sliced into me, temptation curling in every syllable. My arms shook under the weight of the pistol. Bigger than money. Bigger than names. The thought made me nauseous. Why? I demanded, voice trembling. Why him? Why us? The man's eyes gleamed. Because he was weak. He thought the truth mattered. He forgot that power decides what's true. And now you're here, clinging to the same fantasy. He took another step forward, his gun lowered slightly. Give it to me. Walk away. You'll disappear, live quietly. You'll be free. Free. The word struck like a blow. I could almost see it. A life without shadows, without guns, without blood. A quiet home, a name no one knew, mornings where I wasn't running. But then another image rose. My father, hunched over his desk, scribbling desperately in his journals, his face drawn but resolute. Irina, firing into the darkness, giving her life for a chance I might waste. Their sacrifices weren't for my escape. They were for something greater. My hand steadied. No, I whispered. His face hardened. The moment shattered. Gunfire exploded, deafening, blinding. I dove behind the loom as bullets tore through the air, splinters raining over me. My return fire was clumsy, desperate, but one of the beams wavered and fell. Adrenaline surged like fire through my veins. They shouted, regrouping, pressing in. I crawled low, dragging myself toward the mill's central staircase. My lungs burned, ears rang, but I kept moving. At the top, I found a narrow walkway overlooking the floor. It swayed under my weight, metal groaning. From here, I could see them spreading below, hunting me. The leader raised his eyes, found me in the shadows, and smiled. You won't last, he called. Even if you kill me, there are more. You can't fight an army. Maybe not, I shouted back, heart hammering. But I can make sure you don't win. My hand tightened around the flash drive. The walkway trembled under me. A thought struck, wild and terrifying. I could end this. Not by handing it over, not by running, but by destroying it. Irina's command echoed. Don't let it fall into their hands. But destroying it meant obliterating the last piece of my father. His final legacy. My only tether to him. The drive burned in my palm, hot with choice. Tears blurred my vision. If I smashed it here, everything he died for would vanish. If I kept it, they'd never stop coming. Either way, I lost. My breath broke into sobs. I can't. I whispered to no one, to everyone. Below, the leader raised his weapon, his voice ringing out. Last chance. I closed my eyes. Then I hurled the drive against the metal grating with all my strength. It shattered, pieces scattering, sparks spitting as the circuitry died. A scream of fury rose from below. Bullets ripped through the walkway, shredding metal. I fired blindly downward, rage and grief fueling me. 2 men fell. The leader ducked, barking orders. But the destruction was done. The data was gone. My father's secrets, safe because they were lost. A shot tore through my shoulder, spinning me backward. Pain exploded, but I clung to the railing, teeth clenched. The leader's face rose to meet mine, eyes burning with hatred. Fool, he hissed. You destroyed the only thing keeping you alive. My lips curled, blood in my mouth. Then I guess we're both dead men's children now. With the last of my strength, I lifted the pistol and fired. The bullet struck his chest. His eyes widened in shock as he crumpled. The others froze, their leader falling at their feet. For a heartbeat, silence reigned. Then chaos erupted. I stumbled backward, clutching my bleeding shoulder, my vision fading. The walkway groaned, a final protest, then collapsed beneath me. Darkness swallowed everything. When I opened my eyes, I thought for a moment that I was already dead. There was nothing but blackness, heavy and infinite, like drowning in tar. My chest burned, every breath a knife, and when I tried to move, pain flared so violently through my shoulder that I cried out. The sound echoed back to me, hollow, metallic. I wasn't in the mill anymore. I lay on cold concrete, the air sharp with antiseptic and electricity. Somewhere nearby, machines hummed steadily. My pulse quickened. They had taken me. The flash of memory returned. The collapse, the fall, the world vanishing under me. I should have died. But instead, I woke here. My left arm was bound tightly, the wound sealed but throbbing. My gun was gone, of course, but worse, so was the shattered flash drive. You're lucky to be alive, a voice said. I jerked, biting back a scream, and turned my head. A woman sat in the corner, her hair tied back, her face pale in the fluorescent light. She wore no uniform, no weapon at her side, but her eyes carried the same weight I had seen in my pursuers, knowledge that could crush me. Who are you? I rasped, my throat raw. She rose slowly, stepping closer, her movements deliberate. Someone who's been watching you longer than you realize. Someone who wanted to see if you were strong enough to do what he couldn't. Her words struck deep. What who couldn't? I demanded, though I already feared the answer. She gave me a small, almost pitying smile. Your father. My heart stuttered, a rush of denial and rage surging through me. That's a lie, I spat. He fought them. He died because he wouldn't give in. And yet, she said calmly, he hid the drive instead of burning it. He carried it for years, knowing it endangered you both. He couldn't let go. He couldn't destroy it. You did what he couldn't. Her voice was not mocking, it was admiring, but the words cut like glass. Had I betrayed him or honored him? My mind reeled, grasping for air in a storm of doubt. She crouched beside me, lowering her voice to a whisper. They think it's over now because the data is gone. But secrets like that never die. Someone always keeps a copy. Someone always remembers. You've only delayed what's coming. Her hand brushed the bandage at my shoulder gently, as though she wanted to comfort me. You'll have a choice soon, to keep running or to finish what your father began. I stared at her, throat dry. And what if I just wanted to end? She tilted her head, studying me like I was some rare specimen. Then it ends. For you, but not for them. They'll keep building, keep burying, keep bleeding the world until someone stops them. She stood again, her figure casting a long shadow against the wall. I thought maybe that someone was you, but perhaps you're not ready. She turned, walking toward a steel door at the far end. Panic stabbed me. Wait. My voice cracked. Why me? Why not someone else? She paused, her hand on the handle, but didn't look back. Because you already chose the hardest path. You lost everything and still refused to surrender. That's why you matter. The door opened, flooding the room with white light. She stepped into it, then vanished, the door clanging shut behind her. I lay there, the humming of machines filling the silence, her words wrapping around me like chains. You refused to surrender. Was that victory, or just stubbornness? My father's face haunted me, weary but resolute, scribbling in his journals, whispering to me as a child that truth mattered more than life. But truth was dead now, ground to dust with that shattered drive. Unless she was right. Unless copies lingered, hidden, waiting for someone reckless enough to drag them into the light. I pushed myself upright with a cry of pain, my vision swimming, but my body obeyed. My legs trembled as I stood, bare feet against the freezing floor. The room had no windows, only the sealed door. My father's journals had always warned of this, that truth was never destroyed, only buried, waiting for someone desperate enough to dig. I didn't know if I was that person. I didn't know if I had the strength to carry his war any longer. But I knew one thing with shattering clarity. If I walked away now, if I let the world think the danger had died with that drive, then his death and Irina's sacrifice meant nothing. And I couldn't bear that. My fists clenched. Pain seared my shoulder, but I welcomed it. It reminded me I was still alive, still capable of choice. Still my father's daughter. Somewhere beyond that door, they were waiting, whether allies or enemies, I couldn't yet know. But the war wasn't finished. Not for me. I took one shuddering breath and whispered into the silence. This isn't over. The room seemed to hold its breath with me, every machine pausing for a heartbeat, as though the world itself knew I had chosen.